Hello, everyone, and welcome to part 2 of my series on autism spectrum disorder. April is Autism Acceptance Month. Thank you for a note I received last week that actually in 2021 this was updated from Autism Awareness Month to Autism Acceptance Month. A small change, but a very important one. So thank you for that note. So part 1 focused on education and understanding, really trying to help people understand from a scientific perspective what autism spectrum disorder is. And today, what I want to walk you through is really my journey as an autistic. So more than last time, this is going to be even more individualized to my own life experience, but I will also along the way try to really make sure I'm clarifying that general autistic experience as well. And so with that, I want to dive right in. And the first thing I want to do is take us into a role-playing exercise a little bit here. What I would like you to do is pretend that you are a autistic child, let's say about first grade, and I'm going to teach you what I wish someone had taught me as I started to enter neurotypical society. So you're getting ready to enter society, you're starting school. Before you do, though, I need to teach you about non-autism spectrum disorder. You see, most people in the world have a condition that makes them fundamentally different from you. Their brains are just wired differently. And I want to prepare you for some of the things you're going to experience. First, they will creepily stare into your eyeballs. I cannot emphasize this enough. You need to be prepared for it. See, non-autistics, the way their brain functions is they can't hear you unless they're staring at you. Think of it like the Tyrannosaurus Rex. If you're not moving, it can't tell you're there. If you're not staring deeply into the soul of a non-autistic, they can't hear you. Very bizarre. But this one's going to be one you're going to have to practice because they expect it. So I recommend just really getting in there, do some mirror practice, try the bridge of the nose or like the eye. You got to figure it out because it's very important to their culture. Second, they don't care about structure. They wake up every day, sit up in bed and just scream, Carpe diem, and they just run off and do stuff. They don't plan anything. I don't think they know what calendars are. It's absolutely bizarre. I mean, they wake up and they go seize the carp. I think the carp is a metaphor for the whirlwind of chaos and entropy that is their existence. But in their defense, they're phenomenal at change management. Flexibility, things change within a work parameter or life. They handle it pretty well, way better than we do for the most part. I'll give them credit where it's due. They fail to hyper-focus on singular important tasks. So they'll do multiple tasks bit by bit. They'll even take a break from what they're focusing on to go to a completely unrelated meeting. And I have heard rumors that they will even go to sleep for as long as 9 hours before getting up and returning to work instead of just powering through until 5 a.m. And frankly, that's insane. All right. We've been at this for about 2 minutes. Everyone go ahead and take a break and stim. Okay, stim break complete. I saw that flapping back there. You look great. So, brings us to our next item. They will convey weird hints through interpretive dance instead of just saying it. For example, I'm going to bring 2 examples actually. First one, the shrug. Watch closely. See what I did there? The shoulders, the shrug, you can throw that out whenever someone, asks you what you're doing later in the evening. You can dodge all the small talk by just, if you're feeling ambitious, just, really get into it. Ends conversations really quickly. The second one, saw this one on a non-autistic romance comedy, the smolder. There's a lot of facial features in this one, so get ready for it. So I might not have done that one right because in the movie, it was devastating. I don't really understand how it works, but it does something to some people. Here's the last one, and this is the important one. And I've actually got the next slide. I'm going to go into more details for all of you on this. They say things they don't mean. So it's really difficult for non-autistics to say what they mean. instead of using the correct words, they'll change the pitch of their voice, they'll change the tone, and it'll completely alter the meaning of the sentence. It's very baffling. And so I put together a common list of some non-autistic phrases and words you're going to hear, and really just to help you interpret them. So first, and this one is one of the most confounding to me. How are you? And I know, how are you, right? That's what they mean. Surely that's what they mean. No, they mean hello. Acceptable responses to how are you? I'm doing great. How about you? Or I'm good. How are you? And literally nothing else. Under no circumstances are you ever to tell a non-autistic how you are doing in response to the question, how are you? It will freak them out. I'm doing great. Means I'm doing fine. Okay, just a little different. We'll forgive that one. I'm doing fine. Means I'm not fine. I'm doing okay. Program in your memory banks right now. If you hear a non-autistic say, I'm doing okay, you need to focus up. They're in real trouble. If you hear a non-autistic say, I'm doing okay, within the social setting where their etiquette demands that they pretend everything's fine, they may actually be dying. You need to stop what you're doing and alert the appropriate medical services. They need help. It was literally on fire. Now, the tone that was used was more like, it was literally on fire. This is a puzzling one. It was really fun. So non-autistics have a very loose relationship with the definition of literally. And it's going to be really important to get comfortable with where they're going with this one. Once you've confirmed there's not actually a fire, just stare into their eyes, smile, and laugh. They love it. Gets them every time. That's interesting. I don't like it, and I'm about to pitch another option. See, non-autistics are very sensitive, and they worry they will offend others if they don't first couch their disagreement in platitudes. And so it's really important to add a bunch of filler words whenever you disagree with someone, because non-autistics can get offended pretty easily if you're just direct with them. That could work. That's definitely not going to work, but you're my boss and I have to agree with you. So this pigeon tails, something like that. This transitions pretty smoothly off that last one. Non-autistics place a tremendous importance on leadership structures and agreeing with each other in general. And so you have to be really careful when you communicate with a non-autistic disagreement-wise. You need to make sure that you couch it in a way that doesn't sound like they're wrong. You're just sharing your opinion. Because of course we know we're just sharing our opinion, but sometimes we come off a little assertive that makes it sound like we just think they're wrong. And that's not the case. And we just need to make sure we clean up that a little bit to help them out. So thank you for coming along with that exercise, because really the autistic experience, it comes down to a lot of this. And these are all painstaking lessons I have learned over the course of my life. Nobody taught me these things. I was diagnosed as an adult and I knew I was different, but I never knew why. And so every one of these little things and many countless more, I just had to figure out on the way. And I can't tell you just how much I wish I'd had this resource. The satire of it aside, it really would have made a huge difference. And I hope by sharing it from that perspective, it kind of helps let you, join my shoes just for a little bit. And so I want to transition that to another example, because I love metaphors. They help. It's a shared experience that we can both walk away with the same meaning to avoid communication errors. And one of the metaphors I like for what it's like to be autistic in a non-autistic world, which it fundamentally is that, and I'm not going to drain the slide, you can read it, but I feel like I'm in a play and everyone else knows the lines and I don't. And now remember, I'm in a play, I'm on stage. So when I don't know my line, I have to look around. I have to look over and be like, what's my line? And now the people in the audience are like, what are you doing? What do you not know what's going on? The other actors with me are like, hey, do you not know what's going on? And so I get, I get in trouble because I don't know what's going on. And that's what every day growing up felt like. And frankly, it was a real pain, because in school, I thrived on learning. I mean, I had a voracious appetite for literature. I read nearly every novel by James Fenimore Cooper, including The Last of the Mohicans in 2nd grade. I read Lord of the Rings in 4th grade. I loved education, but I couldn't understand the social cues. And so it caused me to be, quite the pariah in a lot of ways. And my time within the education system, in addition to, this scripted challenge, it's really best described in a short video clip that I want to share that I really love. If you've never seen How to Train Your Dragon before, I highly recommend you watch it because it's just a great movie, 2010 by DreamWorks, Jay Baruchel, Craig Ferguson, Gerard Butler, amazing voice actors. Great movie. And the whole movie is a great example of what it's like for, if you imagine Hiccup as an autistic individual, the whole story is a perfect metaphor for the experience. And so with that, I want to show you a brief clip. And this is what school was like for me most of the time.
Hiccup, if you ever want to get out there to fight dragons, you need to stop all this.
But you just pointed to all of me.
Yes, that's it. Stop being all of you. Oh yeah.
You, sir, are playing a dangerous game. Keeping this much raw Vikingness contained. There will be consequences.
I'll take my chances.
So again, it's funny, but that's what it felt like. I'm doing everything perfectly fine except these social cues, and I would be told, just whatever this is, stop it. And I struggled to believe that my teachers were right, and not all, but many. And so when I went off to college, I gained a tremendous amount of freedom. I got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I specialized in white-collar crime. My master's degree was in accounting, and I finished my CPAs and joined public accounting before I moved out to Connecticut. And along this time, because of that freedom I got in college, I realized that I did know a lot. I was great at these things because I was able to avoid social interactions that I really didn't understand. And the problem, though, is once I joined corporate America, I could no longer avoid the confusing social interactions. And once again, very quickly, I found the walls closing in around me. And this next clip is exactly what happened to me. Many of my performance reviews in my early career sounded just like this.
Which means you walk like us, you talk like us, you think like us. No more of this.
You just gestured to all of me.
Deal?
This conversation is feeling very one-sided.
Deal?
Deal.
I can't emphasize enough just how well that describes most of these interactions, because my work product was excellent, my data analysis phenomenal, but when it came to the simplest of social interactions, there would always be, some rough edge that everyone in the room could tell that there was something off. And well, and that was the conversation. And really where this brings me is the concept of masking. Many of you may have heard of this before. For those who haven't, I will describe it in detail. Masking is the process by which we, as autistics, hide the fact that we are autistic. Not only do we hide that we're autistic, but we pretend that we are neurotypical. And it is a learned process over years and years and years. And it looks like this. So, as I said, it's an adding and subtracting an equation. So first, I have to add things that aren't normal to me, that aren't natural to me as an autistic. I have to fake eye contact, imitate smiles and other facial expressions. I practice in the mirror, all of these things, gestures, smiles, eye contact. I literally have practiced these things for countless hours in a mirror because I need to understand what I look like when I do these. And I need to understand if that's what the neurotypical would look like when they do them so that I can adequately blend in. Subtracting. This is the part where I have to suppress who I am. This is where I hide my authentic self to extend the conversation to that point. I have to hide or minimize personal interests. I push through sensory discomfort involving lights or noises, and I disguise or eliminate stimming behavior. Earlier, I made a joke about taking a stim break. That's an example of stimming and a personal tic of mine, and I will discuss stimming in a little more detail on the next slide. And then lastly is planning. Autistics, and myself in particular, develop a repertoire of rehearsed responses to questions. How are you? Because I know that's not the question, I develop a rehearsed response, and I will give almost identical the response no matter when you ask it. or other questions that I get asked commonly, like my top 10 most frequently asked questions, I have rehearsed responses to, and I will give the same response every time instead of changing it to the situation, because the context of the situation is so flexible that I don't trust that I will know the context well enough to make up an answer on the spot. And then scripted conversations, I talk to myself all the time, not because I hear voices. I talk to myself because I need to hear myself to know what my answer is. And I will script conversations so that I can speak exactly the way I mean to and ensure that others will hear me that way. And the best way for me to do it is to prepare in advance. Now, the obvious question that comes about from this is, why do we mask? And we do it for this list of reasons, and I'm not going to drain it, but ultimately for me, it comes down to because I was bullied as a child because I was different. As many of you know, kids are not terribly nice when you put them in the school system. And because I wanted to fit in, I'm okay with standing out when I choose to stand out. I do not like standing out naturally just because I look like I have a target on my back. And pivoting off of that, masking is a response to trauma. Masking is not a desire to be anything other than autistic. I like that I'm autistic. I love that I'm autistic. I don't necessarily like the way I'm treated because I am autistic. And a quote I found on the Autistic Advocate really resonated with me, and I want to share with all of you. Masking is effectively holding your breath. The regulation we need to occur does not occur, and eventually we either have to breathe or pass out. Every day I go to work, or whatever I'm doing, I'm holding my breath. I'm hiding my autism. I am adding these features that are not me. And if I can't get to a safe place and breathe and then hold my breath again, I will melt down. And and that's one of the reasons I crave structure so much, is because I know where I can balance that control. So I promised I would talk about stimming, and I want to. It's very interesting. So flapping is one of the default ones. I don't flap a ton. I will if I have a meltdown. That maybe someday I'll let you guys see what that looks like. Not tonight though. But flapping is a pretty common one. For me, it is it's my knuckles, usually just the left finger and the two on the right. I don't know why, but against the bridge of the nose, and then I'll do it up here as well. I can't prevent myself from doing that tick when I get excited, unless I really try. Most of you haven't seen it. It's a testament to my incredible efforts to hide that. Doodling, twisting hair, swinging and rocking, fidgeting. I swing back in my hair all the time. I usually play with my beard, not my hair. Don't have a ton of either, frankly. Fidgeting, I love spinning pens. That's my default fidget. And lastly, you'll notice I left top right for last year, echolalia. This is a really cool one. And this is actually one that's really personal to me, really individualized experience for me that I want to highlight in a little more detail. Echolalia describes the precise repetition or echoing aloud of words and sounds. And this is normal in all children's development, neurotypical, autistic, what have you. Echolalia is normal. And for neurotypical children, for non-autistic children, by the time they're 3 years old, most children are communicating with others by selecting words and phrases they've heard, but using their own voice and intonation. And by the ages of 4 or 5, they're having complex, questions and answers and conversations carrying on in their own unique language. With autistics, what can happen, and in my case is common, is I never really grew out of that repetition. So if I hear something, I will lock onto that phrase and I will experience the memory. And the easiest way to describe this is movie quotes. So if you think of, let me actually jump in here. So think about, we're not in Kansas anymore. Most people, autistic or neurotypical, would hear that. You've probably heard people use that phrase out of context. I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. And they don't mean it literally, because most of the time that's not generally relevant to the situation. Obviously, you're not in Kansas. More likely, we're clearly operating in a new space and we're not really sure like what we're doing here. But think about it. That quote evoked a memory for you. All of you, I'm guessing, 1939, Judy Garland, The Wizard of Oz was very well famous. But so you didn't think about the quote literally. It transported you like a link to a YouTube video to a 2-minute reaction, a quickly condensed memory in your head over in a flash of the Wizard of Oz, the way Judy Garland felt and portrayed Dorothy, and this, we're not in Kansas anymore. And it's this really condensed memory. And in echolalia, that's called prefabrication. It's basically like a URL link to a YouTube. And I'm going to give you the link, and that link is the quote. And by giving you that quote, if you understand the quote, it will instantly share with you what I am perceiving in the moment. So for example, one of my favorite movies, Princess Bride, 1989, Inigo Montoya and Vizzini. And Vizzini says, "Inconceivable!" And Inigo Montoya turns to me and says, "You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means." I think of this quote every time someone says agile in the workplace. And that's the thought that goes through my head. And if I wasn't resisting the urge, I might utter the phrase, "I do not think it means what you think it means." Nobody would understand it. They would think I was insane. But another person who had seen the movie and got the reference would immediately understand the structure I was providing around the context. And that's a normal process for me. And so I love communicating through quotes and metaphors and everything. So let me try a couple more and see if this resonates for anyone. My voice is getting raw here, so forgive my Patrick Warburton cronk here. Yeah, it's all coming together. So if you haven't seen Emperor's New Groove, you're missing out. Phenomenal movie, 2000. But this one you may have heard me utter if you've ever worked with me, because once a project is nearing completion, we finally figure some things out. I love dropping this one because it's far too entertaining, and it's that project completion. I love it. And then you've also got Gingy here from Shrek. "You're a monster." Now my voice is getting raw. But again, it's a quote, and notice that the text and the intonation, whatever you may think of my voice acting skills, I remember the quote throughout the entirety of the thing. It's not my own voice. It is replicating what I hear. And in doing so, again, I'm sharing that experience. And so a contextually appropriate, one for this is if someone asks me to do something that of course I'm going to do, and I'm giving them a hard time about it, I might tell them that they're a monster within this context of the quote. Now, the problem is autistic brains and non-autistic brains are like two different computer operating systems. And I'm not going to tell you which one's Mac and which one's Windows, because I don't think that's relevant. But ultimately, they're both completely functioning brains. They just don't communicate all that well together. And so often when I communicate something through prefabrication, through echolalia, I sound insane. But someone who gets the quote, so when in those instances where someone does, they're like, "Oh yeah," and it's that really fun shared memory. So I tend to suppress this, but ultimately, at my best, I would probably communicate in 50% quotes, which is admittedly probably a little too much, which is, let's find that happy middle ground for everyone, but it is something I love doing. So taking not too hard a pivot here, but I've been talking about what a lot of my challenges have been. I really want to talk about what a lot of my strengths have been as well. And so first, I'm going to talk about general autistic strengths. And these are strengths I believe by virtue of being autistic, most people have. And then I'm going to walk you through a few of the autistic strengths that I personally perceive myself to have. Certainly open to objections. So focus and concentration. So we hyperfixate, and given a project and a necessity and an appreciated understanding of the need to have it done, we will get it done to the detriment of all other things we're supposed to be doing. We will blow off meetings. We will not sleep. We will get it done. Avoidance of drama. We just don't do it. We don't get the social cues, because we operate in such a literal understanding, there's nothing to misconceive for us. We just don't do it. Perseverance. Again, this ties to focus and concentration. We will stick with something until we finish it. Again, individualized experiences, you'll see some variances here, but we need to see it done. Honesty. This is personally my favorite, I think. If you truly want to know how your hair looks or how the outfit you're wearing it looks, ask an autistic individual. We don't lie. Over our lives, we gain the ability to exercise tact. And I have learned a tremendous amount of tact as I've grown up. But we don't like lying. It's not how we communicate. It's not that we're incapable, it's just very unnatural to us. And I know for me, my brutal honesty has gotten me into trouble a lot of times, because when people ask how they look, sometimes they don't actually want they don't want you to answer them. They just want you to give them a programmed response. You know, I could have included that in the note above of what to say. Memory. Most autistics have excellent memory, especially for spatial awareness, visual features, things like that. It actually makes us exceptional at picking out PowerPoint presentations, inconsistencies. If your slides are off, I promise I will notice. And many of you who've worked with me have probably been at the receiving end of some of my critiques. We're very fast learners. So we pick up things very quickly and we're ready to move on to the next thing. Our brains just process the patterns quickly. And lastly is long-term employment. And this is one a lot of people don't think of at first. We don't like change. We like structure, we like routine, we like repetition. It's like Cheers. We want to be somewhere where everyone knows our name, they understand our quirks and appreciate and accept us for them, and then we want to stay there. And again, individualized experience, countless myriad reasons that might change, but ultimately, we don't want to go anywhere else. We want to be somewhere that we are loved and accepted and stay there. So, talking about some specific autistic strengths for me, I've killed my voice at this point, but for me, echolalia, because I fixate so heavily on voices and practicing these interactions, I'm actually a pretty good voice actor. And this is actually a hobby of mine. I engage it regularly. I have done corporate voiceovers before. I've done voiceovers for animated figures in video games before. It's a very, very fun hobby for me, and I genuinely I can't get enough of doing it. It's just a ton of fun. Scripted conversations and rehearsed responses to questions. So I'm not naturally a good presenter. I was terrible at it as a kid. But because I practice presentations, because I run conversations in my head constantly, over time I have become very, very generally skilled. I hedged on that. I was going to see very, very good at presentations. Then I realized how arrogant that made me sound. I am very practiced as a presenter. Now here you've seen me fidgeting a lot, but I thrive on a stage. It's my preference. The ability to slowly, pace back and forth and control a conversation, direct it to where it's going. Controlled features. Like again, I have this narrow window here where you can see my hands, so I don't get to operate the way I normally do. But I've had to practice all of these things millions of times, and I've gotten very good at it. And then lastly is pattern recognition. So some of you may be familiar with this. It's often considered stereotypical autistic pattern recognition. Autistics in general are very, very good at identifying patterns. And it's because we see things differently. So while 100 neurotypicals might be looking at something, very smart, very intelligent people, we fundamentally see the world in a different way. This is probably one of the most obvious and productive perks, there's the word, perks that comes with being autistic, is that we just see the world a different way and we bring a different perspective. And I don't want to say it's a better perspective, but it's a different one. And when it comes to data analysis, such an incredible tool that we're involved in today in virtually every industry and even in your personal life at this point, the ability to see patterns differently is really, really, really valuable. And this is something that I in particular, I consider myself very good at. So with that all being said, I've taken way more of your time today than I meant to, and I really appreciate you sticking through it this long. What's next? So this was part 2. Next week on Monday evening, I will be, of course that pops up, restarts recommended. Part 3 will be next Monday, a call to action on really what behavior can you change to help, and what can you, what should you, and really trying to help divide that line, because absolutely nobody should be walking away thinking one side holds all the cards here. That's not how it works. Like anything else, we have to meet in the middle. And I'm going to walk folks through some of the things I think would be the most helpful. So with that, thank you all for sticking out this long, and have a wonderful evening, day, or whatever time it is. Thanks, folks.